Hello and welcome to another episode of FinTech Focus TV with me, Toby Babb, here from a very, very sunny New York City. We are at the TradingTech Briefing, brought to you from the A-Team Group, and it's my great pleasure to bring Andrew George onto the show. Andrew, how are you?
Nice to meet you, Toby. Hi.
It's lovely to have you on.
Thank you.
3Forge we had on back in London, where I met some of the team over there. A fantastic company doing some very exciting things at the moment. Tell us a little bit about 3Forge before we crack on to what we're going to talk about today.
Sure. So 3Forge is a software company that focuses on building rapid application development platform for finance and for really any industry. Platform is agnostic. However, our founder was based in finance, and that's where our roots kind of started.
Yeah.
So we basically help build the 80% of an application that really isn't any different than any other application, so that teams can focus on that last 10-20% that makes their application special and different. The framework's very good at data, very good at taking high velocity, fast moving data sets and processing them, creating real-time user interfaces and various other tools. In algorithmic trading systems with things like that it's very popular to use our platform to kind of connect in and kind of basically build a window into what's happening in that trading platform. Think of it a bit like a Lego set. You have a connectivity framework called the relay. We have a database that we call the center. It can work as a real-time database, which is basically a way of caching and holding data temporarily. And we also have the ability to historically kind of archive data long-term. And then we have a kind of web visualization layer where you can build user interfaces, you can capture information from end users, create order tickets, send orders into order management systems, things like that. You can look at things like live P&L, profits and losses, other calculations, so you can do quite a bit.
And look, we're here today at the TradingTech Briefing.
Yeah.
There's a host of really interesting conversations. You guys are one of the sponsors here today, so thanks for allowing it to happen first and foremost. But I think one of the things that's a constant throughout the course of today is that the times they are changing. We're seeing a lot of development within this space. And I think also it's a lot of development within the actual look and feel of the IT department as a whole as well, and where things are happening in the space. I know this is something that you guys have been seeing and working on a little bit as well. Tell us a little bit about what that looks like to you.
Absolutely. Personally, I left technology for a little while in my career after kind of moving up a ladder enough that I felt like my day-to-day job was mostly about managing the budget. And the budget became just a very onerous, painful thing. And year over year, the budgets would not go up. The business would ask us to absorb more and more into the existing budget that we had, do more things. And the timelines, the ability to kind of turn applications around that were high quality is very challenging. And a lot of the requirements we get would be dictated to us, whether it was like a regulatory finding or various other kind of large scale infrastructure projects. And that really kind of left a lot of these smaller teams in the business that were looking for small applications, agile development, left them kind of stuck. And so I think that really, to me, the technology departments hadn't been that sustainable, especially for the developing smaller applications. And so it's interesting over time. I've seen a few things happen. One thing that's been present for a while is that you see more and more technical people being hired by the business and by teams outside of technology. People who are capable of scripting, people who've written Python, worked in other languages. I think the first group you see like this in banks would be the quants.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you see you're starting to see groups, data scientists, other types of folks.
Well, even the sales teams are getting more
technical.
Even
the sales teams.
Yeah, change and transformation, business analysis.
Product teams, things like that.
Yeah.
You start to see like a technical skill set. And an analogy I like to make is like in the old days, video editing was like this very specialized skill set that people had to acquire. You had to go out and get a special computer with like hardware cards plugged into it. Nowadays, you can just use your iPhone or your Android phone. Everybody has this skill set. I think software development's a little bit like that. A lot of people take programming in school. My son went to camp for it. I think that the average person going into the workforce is just that much savvier when it comes to how do you program, how do you do things. and they want to solve problems. They don't want to sit there, stuck in a spreadsheet. They don't want to sit there stuck in some very simplistic tool doing things manually and repetitively. They want to build solutions. And I think that that's something that 3Forge is really kind of powerful for, and eye-opening for me was that I'd seen this problem in the past. When I came to 3Forge, I started to realize that many of our customers are actually not the traditional technology teams. They're actually all these teams like I just mentioned around it, the product teams and other groups that have technical people, have technical ability, and but want to build a real strategic solution. And so I think that that's something I've seen. I've worked in various banks and controls for a while. I've seen, for example, governance frameworks come up for end user applications. And basically what you'll end up having to do, it's like a mini version of technology risk and controls where you have to create an inventory of all the different end user applications that have been built by the team, and you have to have like testing and various other things that you do, and you try to eliminate things like key person risk that comes along with developing these types of tool sets, right? So I feel like tools like 3Forge, we basically solve a lot of the foundational problems you'll have. So how do you connect to a data source and get data? How do you securely kind of prevent the wrong folks from logging in and accessing that data? A lot of these desktop tools fail in that particular space. Anybody can get into a spreadsheet. And then how do you just process stuff at scale? I mean, if you think about Excel, which I'll consider a bit of a tool of last resort, it's very powerful. But when you start getting thousands and thousands of rows, it gets very cumbersome to do anything in Excel, and the data set gets large. So 3Forge lets you process hundreds of thousands and millions of rows, and really kind of takes some of those things that are painful to do on your desktop and turn them into something that's kind of easy to deliver, easy to scale later if you need to add more servers and nodes, whatever. You can add them into the system pretty easily. And then last but not least, visualization. How do you actually create a user interface that's real time?
Yeah.
I mean, you'll be surprised. Finance was so long driven by batch processes, end of day, and people would run something every 15 minutes and send out an email with an updated risk calculation on it. A lot of that stuff is still out there.
Yeah.
And and so 3Forge really kind of, if you can get data into the database, subscribing to real-time data feeds, or polling databases at various frequencies, you can get it onto the screen, and you can do that in a manner that is real time, and real time from a user interface standpoint. And so things like doing like transaction cost analysis. A lot of people think of transaction cost analysis as this report that shows up after your order fills. In our platform, you can make that completely real time. And so we have clients risk calculations, taking market data feeds that you have in the firm and joining that with your positions that you've acquired through trading. A lot of this stuff can then just be brought into real time and kind of facilitate a much more proactive decision-making process by the front office teams.
I think this is such an important subject and such an important viewpoint of how you guys are looking at it, because it kind of feels like it's a democratization of technology within this space recently. And we've, I've spoken on this show quite a bit in the past about the sort of development of the industry, full stop, based through our whole interaction with digital technology, full stop, in our everyday lives. And everyone wants to have something that's much more tailored, much more suited and knitted to them. And I think what's happening now is as you say, look, the IT department in its old archaic sort of function was seen as was always a separate thing to the business, but we've seen this convergence of business and technology, people becoming much more technical in their understanding of it. You mentioned there the quants as a classic example of where that comes into it, and that's just such an important part of how we can look at things today, right?
It is, and like one more kind of analogy I'll make is like video games. Years ago, you had to be John Carmack or some specialty developer to make a game look good on the screen. And now, there are game engines like Unreal and Unity and a variety of tools. And the quality of games has not suffered. If anything, games look great across the board, right?
Yeah.
Because the people who are really good at building the engines now focus on building the engines. And the people who want to create on top of those engines can create on top of them. I think the same thing's happening here. I think that open source, while it was powerful and it kind of felt like it was, it used to be you had to license everything, a database. Now you can go out and there's quite a bit of good open source out there, but you still have to do a lot of work to kind of make the pieces all work together. And every line of code you write's a burden. It really is. And you really want to like kind of optimize so that you're not creating so much technical debt, such a large burden, yet you're still getting that custom, that kind of specific, specialized, outcome that you want, right?
Yeah.
You want to have that code that differentiate your platform from the competition's. And so 3Forge looks to kind of fill in that sweet spot, let you still get the right output, but then not have all the burden that goes with it.
Sounds like a perfect spot. So let's finish by talking about 3Forge. Tell me a little bit about what's exciting. We're nearly halfway through the year. What's coming up? What can we expect to see from the company in the next 6 months?
Yeah, we've just completed a fairly large release internally. We've added real-time pivot tables to our platform, so other features you kind of see in Excel and these other tools that we talked about before. We've kind of expanding into more and more, I'd say, buy-side firms, and we're seeing many more applications of like real-time risk. We're also seeing development of back-end, kind of different types of workflows. I think for starters, we had a lot of stuff in cash equities, people building things like order flow management tools, front ends for order management systems. Now we're getting much more into live risk and trade allocations and kind of workflow management tools. So I think what's really exciting to me is just to see firms basically kind of continue to evolve and build even more advanced applications with our platform. And our platform continues to evolve, enabling just more and more development. So I think that, for me, that's been a really interesting part of the drive. And like, being, again, we're, a 50-person company. We're, global. We have offices all around the globe, but we're still growing very rapidly. And so you see quite a bit in just from when I started, beginning of the year to now, quite a bit's changed already. Yeah, just a lot of new features going into the platform. A lot of new client use cases coming up. So
well, it's a business that I hadn't, in honesty, heard. I've been in it for 25 years, and I hadn't heard an awful lot, or been exposed to 3Forge. And I had the great pleasure of having you guys on the show now twice this year. And I think it's fascinating. I've been hearing more and more. You see it. You see you guys about more and more and more. And I think it's a really exciting thing. And where it stems from is, I think it's exactly the right need at exactly the right time in this evolution that we're seeing of the space right now. So. Yeah, exciting times. And listen, what I should also say is you're a very last-minute substitute that came on,
That's fine.
Here as well. You were let down and came out and absolutely smashed out the park. So thank you very much for coming on the show. Lovely to have met you today. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And thank you all for watching. We'll see you on the next episode of FinTech Focus TV. Thanks a lot.